So hello, Marianne.
Hi, Rhiannon. Lovely to meet you.
You too. Thank you so much for coming on. I think that this food for thought in particular today, this podcast is very much needed because I don't know about you, but I am that person that has always worked on my holidays. If I'm being honest, I own a business and we now know, of course, that we have to switch off. So could you start by discussing the impact on our mental health and our well-being, on why holidays are not just this glorified thing everyone does every year? It's actually quite important.
Yeah, absolutely. It's not just about the gloss, is it? It's not just about the Instagram photos. It's actually much more important than that. So if we think about one of the primary functions of holidays to be kind of de-stressing us, but also when we are reduced in stress, it kind of gives us a chance to see how well we can be. So we might see benefits in our physical health, we might see benefits in our mental health, we might see benefits even in our parenting. If you've got more kind of window of tolerance, more flexibility because you are de-stressed, it's beneficial for all. And it just helps us with optimism, with hope, with feeling, I guess, like life is not just a treadmill. There's something else.
No, I like that you said actually that obviously we've got a broad spectrum of listeners that are parents, that aren't parents, but equally the fact that you can become happier within yourself with a change of scene. And I find that really fascinating in terms of I know it from a nutritional angle of research when, you're stressed and you're indoors, whereas the minute you get fresh air, you feel better. But I think a change of scene is so crucial because I know for one that let's take the Christmas that's just gone for an example. The weather's dismal. I'm stuck in the house. There's nowhere I can really take the kids because everywhere's shut. And I just become a bit more snappy. Why is that? Why is this change of scene so crucial to our optimism, like you said, and becoming almost like a better version of yourself?
Yeah, I think that's it. You've hit the nail on the head. It frees you up to be our best selves, really. And whilst we don't want to be, a better parent or a better partner or a better version of ourselves just because we're being observed, sometimes putting ourselves into novel environments, and even being helped a little bit, even if it's going out for dinner or, going out and actually staying in a hotel, that kind of is a bit of a pressure release valve, isn't it? You can think about being in a hotel as almost having like your own private butler for a week, and how amazing that would be, to just be supported. It's part of that. It takes a village, not just to raise your children, but to raise yourself. It doesn't need to be so isolating, and actually you can be more mindful about that.
Do you think there's a difference in the UK versus other countries in the world in the fact, the way that we look at vacations, when we look at escapes and we look at holidays and the emphasis, because I know the emphasis we put around our lunch break is not strong in this country yet. In other countries, they take it as we need this time out so we can be more productive. Do you think we're going wrong here?
Even with lunch breaks, I am very protective of my lunch break. And when I've been in teams, I take a lunch break. I will go and sit somewhere, and it can become quite compelling that people come and join you because that's, you give them permission to do that. And I think the same has to be true with holidays. We have got to give ourselves permission, and there's got to be a company or even a self-employed culture where holidays are seen as essential, not necessarily jet setting, but of course that can be beneficial, but it's got to not be seen as failure to be taking your holiday.
Yeah. And it doesn't have to be, anything extravagant. I think holidays are looked at, a lot of people have family abroad, for instance. And I think even if they go and take a trip to see their family, they may not even have checked into that hotel, like we said, but, they are checking out. And God, it reminds me of, I say I've worked on most holidays, which I have, but I do have such amazing memories from times when, I went away and I didn't work for a few days, and it takes me a while to settle into it. Why does it take us a few days? Because I find it's day 3 or 4. I've only ever been away for a week, but when you get to that point, then I can actually switch off, because it takes me ages to get in the zone of being off.
I think it's that hyper awareness, isn't it? So it's almost like a trauma hangover from your life where you are ready, you're primed for action. I have had the opposite of you. And actually, I was once away for 6 months. So I was traveling independently.
Wow.
Amazing. But even that, you need a break from the hedonism. So as part of that, I went to stay. I guess we can think about our holidays as having multiple different functions. And some of those might be family and connection. Some of it might be exploration. Some of it might be culture. Some of it might be just kind of gastronomy or, improving the relationship with our partners. But even within this kind of 6 months of solo travel, it was nice to be able to go and stay with some family and to get that decompression where I was able to leave my passport on their dining table. No, it wouldn't be robbed, from fellow backpackers. And actually that's really important as well. Even in an extended holiday, there needs to be a time where you can kind of relax a bit more and feel less on the go, more relaxed.
Yeah, no, absolutely. 6 months. I mean, that sounds absolutely amazing. Was that sort of like a gap year holiday or something you just decided I need to do this?
Yeah, so it was after I did my undergraduate degree and I saved up doing all manner of different types of work and then went away with a very good friend and we went to Thailand for 6 weeks, Australia for 10 weeks, New Zealand for 3 weeks, and then Fiji and San Diego just for a day, and then Mexico for 6 weeks, so it was just under 6 months, but really incredible as an experience. And that doesn't, if someone's saying, wow, that must have been so expensive, it doesn't always need to be high-end travel. There's a real mixture of things that were happening there. There was some culture, there was some relaxation. But what I think we can often forget about holidays, even mini breaks, I'm a big fan of a mini break as well, is that can essentially last you a lifetime. Can you think of a holiday you've had where you're able to connect to what you really liked about that? It might be a time you were sitting in a hammock. It might be a sunset you saw. It might be a really enjoyable meal or feeling really connected with your family or your partner. You can draw on that to help you weather the storm in future.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think one of my, I don't actually set resolutions, but one of the things that I've become acutely aware of, and I think partly it's thanks to doing this podcast and having discussions with professionals like yourself, is the fact that the last few years, I have been that person who, running a business, having responsibility, who have always worked. I've just always worked when I've been away because I've always had something to do. I've even done features for BBC News when I was in Tuscany, queued up to my hotel room. And I look back and it's difficult. I wouldn't say regret, but I definitely did not come back feeling refreshed like you should do. And my sort of resolution is this year, it's the last year I've got before my eldest goes to school. We want to travel and make as many memories as possible because I think one of the things that holidays enable you to have is those amazing memories, like you said, that you can tap into when times are tough. And I love having something to look forward to. So I think a goal, I'm going to call it a goal. I prefer a goal, actually. I think a goal is a bit more realistic, is just to get away a bit more for, like you said, mini breaks or potentially gearing up to a long haul flight with the kids at the end of the year, which I'll be very excited about. So I think that's definitely a target for probably other professionals listening as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's about setting your intentions. So if you're saying to yourself, when I go on holiday, actually, I'm sort of prepared to do a bit of agile working. So there's a difference, isn't there, between agile working, which is where you are just doing your job in a different setting, or whether this is actually a holiday with bits that you are prepared to do some agile working in. And if you're not prepared to do agile working, then it's tricky because I'm self-employed as well. You may need to be in a position where you're saying no to self-employed opportunities because you're choosing your own emotional and your family's emotional nourishment. And that's okay.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's really helpful and reassuring as well to people. My listeners will know I've got a 1-year-old and a 3-year-old, and I'm just we didn't actually go away, to be honest, deliberately in the first year, because there was just a lot of admin that came with it. But it is possible, isn't it, for people to travel with youngsters just as much as when their children get bigger. So there's lots of facilities, I think, that, you know, airlines like BA can offer as well, and support, which I think is really, really important. And we actually flew, the one trip we did do, because my friends got married in Ibiza at the beginning of the year, we flew to Spain. We did fly with BA, and it was just seamless. And I have to say, I was dreading it. I'm not gonna sugarcoat it. I was thinking, oh my goodness, even the 2.5 hours, and people fly for longer with the children. I was thinking, how am I going to occupy them? What's it going to be like? But actually, the process of even getting on the plane is a holiday for the kids, isn't it? You know, they find it all fascinating.
Absolutely. My kids' favourite bit of any holiday is the flight and the room, or you know, the place that we're staying. It's a real chance for them to explore, isn't it? And I think we need to give them time to settle into that as well. You know, we don't necessarily need to get all the quiz books out and occupy their every moment. Don't necessarily need to be on tablets. We can let them explore that. And, you know, one of the things about holidays is they give us that opportunity for awe, you know, like to be awe-inspired. And when did you last have that moment of awe? But certainly if you've never been in a plane before, imagine being able to see the clouds from next to your seat. That's awe-inspiring. And actually for children, for all of us, it's good for our mental health, even our physical health, to be around awe, to be inspired. And when we're taking holidays, it might be something like Niagara Falls. It might be something like, I don't know, like little glowworm caves that you can go to in New Zealand. Amazing. It might be, you know, Australia. It might be Fraser Island, it might be seeing sharks. It might be seeing giant redwood trees. You know, it might be seeing sunsets. It might be seeing sunrise. But that sense of awe does amazing things to us in terms of our well-being. But in terms of our children, if anyone's listening to this as a child, children that have experiences of awe have better well-being. They're more creative. Their regulation of their emotional systems is actually better. So maybe that will be an additional incentive to try and create some awe for your children before they go to school.
Is that the term then that you would use, a sense of awe? Is that's the clinical term that you use? That's incredible. I had no idea. And so it doesn't have to be that expensive though, does it? What about people that are looking to go on a short haul flight, like just pop over the channel to France or to Spain, somewhere locally? They can still get those senses of awe.
Absolutely. This doesn't need to be a massively expensive endeavour. And actually, you know, sometimes just going and standing by a seaside or seeing a giant river in flow, that can induce that sense of awe. You know, I'm fairly landlocked where I live. And so sometimes just being by water or being up high and looking out, you get that awe. And actually being in the moment can be really important. So not necessarily just thinking about your phone memory. Let's think about our own memories. Let's think about maybe trying to activate some senses when we're there as well. So thinking about, well, what can you see? And if you're with a child, you know, what can you see? What can you hear? What can you maybe taste in the air? Maybe the air tastes different. What can we feel under our feet? And in terms of our going forward, we're then able to make that moment of awe and connection last longer because we can tap into that at a later stage.
It's fascinating. Is that the reason why I think as adults, you know, a lot of people say they can't remember a lot of what happened when they were very small, but they do remember holidays. Is that because it taps into a different part of the brain or the memory in the hippocampus? Is there something to do with how we store these memories and senses of awe?
It's probably to do with the novel concepts. So we don't necessarily remember every single day we've woken up in the same bed. But if we're doing something different, then that is stored differently. It's encoded differently. But also in terms of retrieval, you know, like I said, we go back in and we take another look at it. We're perhaps more likely to practice that retrieval of that really lovely holiday and that time that mummy or daddy or, you know, my sister was really, I haven't got a sister, but if I had one, you know, my brother was really available to me to spend time with, you know, as a child. And what a great time we had, rather than, you know, having to do football or homework or, you know, all the other stuff that is part of life. So it's probably a mixture of things, but, you know, my family still reminisce about holidays, and my husband and his family are always talking about holidays they've enjoyed. So you're getting that regular kind of retrieval, which is important.
It is important. And actually, for your gut health, it's equally important. That's something I should mention. I think a lot of people have worries about their digestive health when they're traveling, but actually being exposed to different, what I like to call gut bugs, microbes in different foods when you go to different places is so beneficial for diversity. Of course, there's following safe hygiene practices and being aware of different countries and what they have to offer in terms of drinking water, that sort of thing, washed foods in tap water. But aside from that, exposing yourself to diversity in life, especially when we're looking at, like you said, your mental health, the experiences we store from childhood, the food, is really crucial. So is it better? What would you say in terms of what type of holidays? People are probably thinking, right, Rhi, you've inspired me. I want to go book a holiday. I'm going to save for the next 6 months or a year, and I'm going to really look forward to something. Should they set their sights on a relaxation holiday? Or from what you've just said, should they be going out and booking all these action-packed activities? Or is it a balance between the two?
It's most definitely a balance, and it's so unique, isn't it? We are all so different.
Yeah.
And actually, when we book the holiday, we might be thinking, well, I'm going to go canoeing, I'm going to go and climb a mountain, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, it's going to be incredible. When the time comes, we might just not necessarily be in that headspace. And so it's allowing yourself that permission to be flexible, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's so important. But, there's all those different types of holiday, adventure, culture, family, connection, all those many different types. And maybe it's okay to take a little bit of all of those. Maybe actually one of your goals is, certainly if you've got young children, maybe you're thinking, I'd like to have a few afternoon naps.
Yes.
And that's okay. That's not a waste of your holiday. That's an investment in yourself.
Yeah. No, it is. And I mean, this might be a bit of a pipe dream, but do you think, for many people listening, if we had just booked that holiday, we could avoid burnout? Like, could we avoid getting ourselves in the state? For instance, I've neglected it with the young kids last year. Perhaps if I booked it, I would avoid a period of chronic stress.
But I think be kind to yourself, Rhiannon. You've done your best with the resources you've had, and it's really hard being a parent. It doesn't give you the opportunity to do what would be A-list gold standard choices of action all the time, because you're prioritizing, many of the times, you're prioritizing others' needs and keeping that equilibrium. So please do be kind to yourself. And sometimes you just think, you know what? We're managing this. This is working. Yeah. We're going to keep things consistent and keep them in their own beds, because I have a sense that might lead to better sleep, and less chaos, and that's okay. But so I think about holidays as being the cherry on the cake for our wellness. They're not a safety valve. If we're only having those when we're risking burnout, we're kind of doing it wrong. And what we might find, so there's evidence that suggests actually that the benefits of a holiday for most people are kind of neutralized by 11 days post-holiday.
Wow.
And that's kind of sad, isn't it? Yeah. That's not what I would hope. If you spent any amount of money, you'd hope that it might last longer than 11 days. So I think the ways to maximize that is to make sure you've got as good a work-life balance as possible, so that you are getting as much rest as you can, so that we're not using coping strategies that we know might be harmful to us, that might not be our ideal. So we might not be reaching for the wine or the beer as a way of managing our life, to try and make sure that the stress is lower, so that we're not having to do that, so that when we go on holiday, we can kind of plunge straight in and enjoy it, rather than having to completely de-stress to be able to enjoy it.
No, that makes a lot of sense. It's really sensible advice, actually. And I don't think there are quick fixes to things in life. But like we've said, taking time out, be it that mini break, just go away for a weekend even, will obviously reduce your stress levels to some degree with that change of scene. And I think one big problem in our culture today, especially in the Western world, is this work-life balance and the levels of stress that we're exposed to. Because when stress becomes a daily factor rather than moments of stress every now and again, that's when we increase our risk of a variety of poor health ailments that are out there. So let me ask you, do you have any top tips for being able to de-stress? And then, is it important that perhaps we delete apps from our phone, for instance, when we do go away? Is there a way of utilizing the technology and de-stressing? I'm going to throw that at you. Top tips.
Okay. It's a big question, that one, but I will do my best. So I think it's all right. So I would say it is, again, it's different for different people. So even when I'm thinking about when I've been employed, I was making sure that I had made enough space so that there was a chance to take that holiday. And I wasn't just cramming my days and weeks either side of that holiday with the work I would be doing on that holiday, because that is going to neutralize your holiday when you come back. That's going to make you stressed and overwhelmed before you go. But it's also, I think, giving yourself, knowing you've got time perhaps to check your emails, give yourself a day or half a day to get back afterwards, and do all of that before you have to actually, be productive. And similarly, maybe you can have a day before you go, especially if you've got children, where you do the packing, where you actually get your nails done, so that you feel like you're holiday ready. And then coming back, you perhaps get a day to do the laundry so that you're not straight back in. The kids are off to childcare wherever they are, or maybe your partner is off to work and you have some time and headspace to process what you're about to do or what you've just done. But in terms of, it's different strokes for different folks. Yeah. You might not feel comfortable deleting your apps, but it's about being boundaried and actually knowing, this is protected time. This time that I'm going to the cinema, or I'm going walking, or I'm going climbing, or I'm going rock climbing, I'm not going to be on my phone. I'm going to allow myself to perhaps go on my phone for an hour before dinner. That's when I'm doing it. That's when because it's about being respectful to yourself, who you're with as well. Is your partner signing up to the fact that you're having a working holiday, or is actually that's not what they imagined this would be? So it's just trying to make sure you're keeping yourself happy, because, your work does matter. Everybody's work is important to them, but it's knowing that actually we can have that real benefit of decompression where we're just allowed to be ourselves. And sometimes we're not quite sure what that is going to be like. What would I be like without the psychologist? What would you be like without the nutritionist? But we can explore, and maybe we want to learn something when we're on holiday, want to do something new, develop a sense of mastery, or maybe we just want to read a book on a sun lounger, and that's okay.
What you said is so interesting. I hadn't even thought about the fact our identities are so taken up with what we do for a living. If you ask somebody, who are you? Often they'll give their job title rather than who they actually are as a person. And that takes time to explore. So, what on earth would life be like without a holiday or a break then? It's kind of crazy to think about it now we've just said that.
For me, I think it would be a little bit less bleak, and there'd be less opportunity. So I always think that actually it's really nice to do a joy audit. So I'll do this with the clients that I'm working with. And how much have you got going on in your life at the moment where you're feeling joy, either in the moment or anticipation of that moment? And if we don't have nice things planned, then there might be less chance for joy. And we need that whole wealth of emotional experiences, don't we? Life shouldn't always be about a slog. So it's just making sure when you do this joy audit, actually, I do really enjoy that. I do really like that. I'm looking forward to that. And when you're doing that joy audit, it might help highlight the things you enjoy less of, might even help highlight the people you enjoy spending less time with, and so that can be part of your joy audit as well. So you might choose not to go on holiday with those people. But that said, if actually you feel real joy, connection and calm with certain people, maybe you could buddy up, you could go on holiday together, especially if you've got children, because then you might have more of a chance of getting a little bit of a break for yourself. You might feel less guilty about putting the kids in childcare, but of course that's an option too. That is okay. And maybe you can have some time for your partner or just time for yourself without feeling like other people are missing out. But you are allowed to prioritize yourself as well, because you matter. And what we know about certainly children and families is that if we are more fulfilled, everybody else in our life benefits. And that's the bit that I think we forget.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. You can't really define could you define a good or a bad holiday? Is there such a thing as a good or a bad holiday then? In that case, I mean, actually, I can say I have had bad holidays where I've been sick before, but how would you really define it?
That's circumstantial, isn't it? That can happen to all of us at different times. Yeah. But I think probably the worst holiday I had was when my eldest was 13 months, and I was really excited. I really felt like I needed this holiday. And I remember being in the restaurant on the first night, and he just wanted to eat peas, and I was like, oh dear, well, he must be tired. This is going to get better. It didn't, because he developed a cold and it went to complete chaos. But even within that, so what I would say to myself again now, if I was there, is use time when you're there to nourish yourself. Even though there's less than optimal circumstances, book yourself a massage, go and spend half an hour by yourself on a sunbed, reading your book. It's okay. You need this. You matter. You're important. And actually, when you come back to that after half an hour, you'll have loads more gas in the tank to be able to be your best version of yourself, even with a cranky partner, husband, child.
Why is it that we struggle to allow ourselves to have time or even tell ourselves that we matter? How has it got to a point in adulthood where that tends to be something that is difficult to do?
I think quite often it's probably the way we've been parented, made to feel grateful for what we've been given. This crops up in therapy a lot. Even this week, someone had said their partner was amazing. And I was like, okay, really? How amazing? And they're like, oh, does this, that, and the other. And I said, well, that just sounds like equal parenting to me. That sounds like someone who respects you and wants you to have a nice life. That doesn't sound amazing. That sounds like no more than you deserve. And actually, when we look at that, it can help us think about our experience of how we've been treated in the past. You should be grateful for the fact that you've had this or that and the other. Part of growing up, eat that food. The starving children don't have that food. You should be grateful for that. And it's the messages that we hear about ourselves, and even I think the concept of laziness is damaging as well. If you're laying on the sofa reading a book, someone might interpret that as being lazy, but you might be nourishing your soul. You might be decompressing. And actually, one of the things that reading does, it's incredibly mindful. If we're immersed in a story or immersed in learning something, we're just there in that moment in a way that we're often not at other times and in other activities. And so that's not lazy. That's really important. It's a chance to go offline from everything else whilst going online with something that gives your body and your mind a break. So let's not think about holidays as lazy or indulgent. Let's think about them as part of our wellness journey, something that really keeps us well.
Yeah, thank you. I think that's going to resonate a lot with a lot of our listeners, because feeling like you are worthy of it is one part of the exercise I think we have to do before you even book a holiday, thinking, no, I do deserve to work towards this and have this, because wouldn't it just be tragic if, we didn't get to experience as well these other cultures and adventures? And it's not even about that sometimes. It's about just getting a different change of scene. So we always leave each episode that we do with a food for thought. And I think mine today would be, it is really important for our health. And that's something that I don't think I've ever really thought about before. Holidays, I just thought, oh, if you can save up, go, it's a wonderful opportunity to explore, which of course it is. And I've learnt from you about the moments of awe, which are good for our mental health and enable a stable cognitive development. But it actually does help you in terms of you need to switch off. We all deserve this, and you deserve it to everyone listening. So if you think, God, I've had a hard year, work towards something that's within your realms of a bit of an escape. That would be my take-home message. Marianne, I'm sure you can do much better than I at a take-home message there, but what advice would you give to the food for thought listeners about the fact that they need a holiday?
Yeah, everybody does, and it doesn't need to be a really expensive or lavish holiday. It just needs to be, I guess it's that intention setting, isn't it? So at the point where you're booking the holiday, it might be a nice idea to jot down on a piece of paper what your intentions are, what you're hoping to achieve from that holiday that you've just booked. Maybe you could just pop that in your passport. So when you go, it's with you. And then when you're about to have that holiday, maybe when you're on the plane, write another list of actually, now you're about to take this holiday, what are your intentions, and compare them so that you're actually getting, hopefully, a middle ground between what you need versus what you wanted when you booked it, so that you're not then going to shame yourself into feeling like you've wasted the money or wasted the opportunity. Yeah. And maybe your current needs trump the needs of when you booked it, because actually you're less well resourced at the point when you're about to take the holiday, and that's okay. Just know that you matter, and whatever type of holiday you want to take, that's okay. It doesn't need to look like someone else's holiday. It needs to look what lights you up, what's a good fit for you, what's a good fit for your family.
We should have mentioned that comparison. I think there's a phrase, isn't there? It's the thief of joy. And actually, especially in the world of social media, you see, like I see it with other people with kids the same age as mine. I'm like, how are you doing this luxurious holiday and you're getting to do X, Y, Z? Like, it's not all what you see online is basically not always the truth, is it, as well? So we're all unique.
No. It certainly isn't. And actually, maybe the best holiday you'll have is one where you don't take that many photos and you just really focus on that mindful connection to kind of store up those nuggets, so that I really think it's that holidays are for helping you weather the storm in future. The very idea that I can sit here at the age of 42 and reflect upon sitting in a hammock watching a sunset in Thailand when I was 21, 22. That has got me through some really tricky times. It's got me through some good times as well, because you don't always need to go back to them in times of stress. That's really excellent value for that holiday, isn't it?
Oh, Marianne, that's really beautiful. And just a big thank you, I think, for coming on this special episode today. So this episode, everyone, has been brought to you by British Airways Holidays. And I guess if it's inspired you to take your holidays more seriously, I mean, I know it has me, for instance. I don't think I ever took them as seriously as I should have done. Now I will be for my health. Then everyone, you should just head over to ba.com/holidays. British Airways Holidays encourages everyone to prioritise their well-being, which, hallelujah, it definitely does have an impact. And that's by taking their holidays seriously. So alongside competitive pricing, of course, their offerings include a 24-hour helpline, which I know is just, it's so beneficial. Carefully selected holidays, atoll protection, and a generous 23 kilogram per person baggage allowance. Moreover, securing your holiday requires just a £60 per person deposit, so customers can relax, rejuvenate, and what I have learned more importantly than anything from this episode, switch off. So search ba.com/holidays for more.